Welcome to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub here at the Attention Era Media Studios, broadcasting live on Brew Sports. I am Baxter Colburn.
And I'm Simon Provan.
Well, Simon Provan, how are you today, sir?
I'm okay, Baxter.
It's good to see you back here. I missed you last week.
Yeah. Well, Doggie's doing better, so
good.
Had to get her taken care of.
That is the important thing. I mean, I feel like sometimes you never know what Mother Nature is going to throw at you.
That's right.
My wife just called me before we got on the air today, and she's like, so today's my son Beckham's 4-month birthday, I guess, or month day, and she was like, well, he decided to have the biggest blowout in the world and the biggest spit up I've ever seen as well too. And she's like, of course it was when he was in his cute outfit for his 4-month. And she's like, you never know. She's like, what am I supposed to do? I'm like, just laugh. I'm like, that's all you can do. Like, all right, life throws.
That's parenthood is what it is.
Exactly. She's like, life just throws stuff at us all the time. So kind of funny, but we've got some great stuff in store for you guys today. We are going to be joined in just a little bit by ESPN FC senior writer Jeff Carlisle, and then we're going to be joined by one of our Premier League and Champions League correspondents, Marcelo Taborga, as well too, to help break down all the really one-sided games that have been going on in these final legs of the Champions League. I'm a little surprised by that, honestly, but hey, welcome to the Champions League where nothing makes sense. It's kind of like March Madness, I feel like.
Well, absolutely, but big, and I will get into it, but big ups to Leicester City, coming from behind and toppling Sevilla. So congrats to Leicester City.
The Foxes got to have something to cheer about.
Oh, they do.
Like. It's like, well, we sack our manager, we might get relegated, whatever. Just win the Champions League and it'll make it all better. I feel like I don't want to get ahead of that. We'll get into that in just a moment. But we do want to remind you guys, of course, that if you do want to check out the program, you can watch us here live on Brew Sports on Wednesdays from 10 to 11 a.m. Central Time. You can also go to our website, 2upfrontsoccer.com, to find the audio past versions of our shows, which are available on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and Spreaker.com as well.
Yeah, you can find us on Facebook. Just type in 2 Up Front in the search bar. Give us a like. We just recently got to 600 likes, Baxter, so thank you to all of our loyal listeners. You can also check us out on Twitter at 2UpFrontSoccer. That's the number 2. Don't spell it out. He's at Baxter Colburn. I'm at Simon Provan.
All right, Simon Provan. Your favorite time of year is taking place right now, aside from Major League Soccer.
Yes.
Aside from that, it is the World Badminton Championships in India. No, that's not it. He's a big badminton fan, if you didn't know. No, the CONCACAF Champions League semifinals are taking place. First leg last night of Tigres and Vancouver, getting off to a chippy start. You got a chance to catch most of the game.
I did. I was watching it Facebook Live, and Vancouver did what a road team's going to do. They hung back, tried to force some goals on the counterattack. Unfortunately, well, they were doing okay for the first 65 minutes or so, but then let in an own goal on an attempted clearance, so that was a heartbreaker. And then with just a few minutes to go, Tigres with a fantastic strike outside of the 18, Baxter. Tigres up 2-0, heading back now to BC Place for Vancouver. They didn't get that away goal. They gave up 2 goals. That's going to be tough to overcome.
That's a hard thing, honestly, to dig yourself into that kind of a hole. Do you think that Vancouver has what it takes, though, to come back? I mean, going back home, they've actually been scoring goals in MLS, which I would have been more weary about if Vancouver hadn't been even doing anything offensively.
Well, and that's the thing. Do they have what it takes? I'm not sure at this point. Maybe it's too early in the season, but Tigres doesn't have that great of a defense, so it'd be nice to see Vancouver try to expose some of that, especially since they'll be playing at home.
That is true, yeah, and I think that with Vancouver continuing to build the pieces in with Freddie Montero and Breck Shea, a part of what the team is doing now, I think you have to feel a little optimistic. I mean, realistically, if you're any team and you'd be like, well, Barcelona came back, like, why can't we come back, sort of a thing, it's in a little different circumstance.
And here's the thing. Last night, Carl Robinson said after the game, anyone who says there isn't a gap doesn't understand football. And I think there is some truth to that, the gap of a Barcelona to PSG is much more narrow than a gap between the Vancouver Whitecaps and Tigres of Mexico.
Which we've talked about on the show multiple times about the difference between Liga MX and MLS clubs as well, too. So something to certainly keep in mind as we go forward. There's a second game, of course, taking place tonight as well too. FC Dallas and Pachuca.
Yes, FC Dallas, Pachuca. Pachuca, a 4-time champion of the CONCACAF Champions League. However, FC Dallas, they're looking at this in the right way. They rested a lot of starters. Pereira rested a lot of the FC Dallas starters last weekend, where they still ended up getting a draw at Sporting Kansas City. I do think FC Dallas gives MLS the best hope since Real Salt Lake was in the final in 2011. I know Montreal was in there in 2015, but they pretty much got blown out of the water by Club America on that second leg. Real Salt Lake actually really challenged Monterrey in 2011.
They did.
Listen, FC Dallas is playing really well. They've got some, great players. Kellen Acosta, of course, leading the way. But then when you've got defensively Walker Zimmerman, Matt Hedges in the back, this team is looking like they can hold up well against a Pachuca.
Well, and the big storyline, even outside of that, is that Omar Gonzalez is coming back to the Dallas area as well, too. So with being one of the center backs for Pachuca. So, of course, the U.S. national team fans and just in general are keeping a close eye on what's taking place, of course, with everything with Omar Gonzalez. And, will he ever come back to MLS? I don't know. Maybe once he's older and feels that he can cash in on a DP contract. But another fun little storyline to really just kind of keep an eye on if you're a big fan of the CCL semifinals as well, and just an Omar Gonzalez fan as well.
Well, and I think, if anything, Baxter, this should be an exciting game. Both of these teams like to push forward. Oscar Pereira has come out and said that we're at home. We're not going to sit back. We're going to go after it. They want to make sure that when they go down to Mexico for the return leg, that hopefully they have a nice cushion of a score down there.
Yes, I think that would definitely be the big portion. I mean, you obviously want to get it. Even just one goal makes a huge difference. It's better to start with at least one instead of just being completely buried. So,
and of course, not letting in any away goals.
That's the big thing.
Would be a big deal.
You're absolutely right about that. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that. Simon is, of course, our resident CCL expert. So we'll be looking for you, Simon, to give us the latest and greatest information, all surrounding, of course, what is taking place in the CCL. Have you heard about this guy, Christian Pulisic? I heard he's kind of a good player.
I have heard, he does a decent job over there in Germany.
So apparently he is scoring goals like they're going out of style. And the Germans are like, who is this American boy that continues to score goals? He's completed the unconventional hat trick of goals, where he has scored one goal in in each of the last 3 games. So it's a hat trick, but not in the same sense that you and I know it, where it's 3 in a game. But he is scoring consistently, getting consistent minutes for the senior team. Something is going right.
Well, and along with that, Baxter, especially that goal that he had where he chipped the goalkeeper. I'm blanking. I don't have it in front of me here who that was against. But it showed the intelligence that he has as well, that he wasn't just trying to slam that ball into the net. He had one way to put that ball in the goal, and he did it. He was patient, he was calm, he was controlled, and he put the ball away. So for him to have that field awareness and that soccer intelligence at 18 years old is pretty amazing.
You're absolutely right about that. Do you get excited if you're a U.S. soccer fan at this point, saying, "Holy cow, Christian is actually doing something"? What's Josie doing? What's Michael Bradley doing?
I don't even think it's a question. Of course you get excited if you're a U.S. men's national team supporter and you see what Christian Pulisic is doing over there in Germany, the way he's playing for Dortmund. That's what you want to see. I mean, he keeps getting compared to Landon Donovan, and I know there'll be the critics out there that say, well, Landon, didn't last in Germany and only had a couple of stints with Everton and in the Premier League. But even Landon Donovan will admit that Christian Pulisic is much farther ahead than he was.
Yeah,
he's
come out and said that a couple of times as well, too. I mean, look, this kid clearly knows what he's doing, and I think that is really what is going to continue to power U.S. soccer forward, especially come Gold Cup time, because obviously you want your veterans that understand what it's like to play some of these Central American teams. And you obviously want to have the veteran leadership, but you need the new spice to just flare up the offense.
Well, and think about this, Baxter. A possible midfield that has Fabian Johnson, Darlington Nagbe, and Christian Pulisic. If you can put all those pieces together somehow, that's a strong midfield.
You're right. And I think that certainly is going to be a big thing going forward, especially if Darlington Nagbe continues to grow into the player that you and I hope he does. He's done a pretty good job so far with Portland on the season, I feel like.
Yeah, he sure has.
We'll have to continue to keep an eye on him as we go forward. You've got one other fun little story for us before we get to Jeff Carlisle. School is important.
School is very important.
You're a professor.
Even if, so maybe I'm a little biased on this, but even if you're playing for Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League, you still may have to miss the game because you've got exams. And that's exactly what is going on, Baxter, with striker Kai Havertz. He plays for Bayer Leverkusen, and he actually has to sit out the next Champions League game because he has to attend school to finish up his exams.
Really? So Bayer Leverkusen, if you don't know, has to take on Atletico Madrid today, later on this afternoon. is he? I don't know. I guess much about this player. Is he an integral part of what they've been doing?
Well, he's played 9 games for Bayer in 2017.
Okay.
He's 17 years old. His Rudi Völler, legend in the German football game. He thinks he's a fantastic player, a young starlet. So, is he an integral part to Leverkusen? I wouldn't say he's an integral part. However, he's looking at playing time in Champions League, so that says a lot there. But you can't make excuses. You can't give this kid a special pass to not do his exams because he's a professional soccer player. You still got to suffer the consequences if you don't take them.
You're absolutely right about that.
And yes, I'm biased, all right? I'm a college professor.
No, and I understand. I was just going to ask you, though, have you ever had any weird situations like this come up in your teaching time at all? Where
never had
like,
anybody playing in the Bundesliga that I had to excuse for
commuting
exams.
in for theater class, be like, I need to do my Shakespeare. No, you must play in the Champions League. I feel like for you, you'd be like, your soccer poll would be like, you should go play. It's totally fine. Like, I won't tell anybody.
I might trade off. Like, maybe he teaches my acting students a German dialect or something like that.
There you go.
That might work.
You see, everybody wins. I feel like we're kind of a silly but fun story though.
Absolutely
to conclude
unique, anyways.
Yes, exactly. So that concludes our kick around. We're going to move into the next part of our show where we're going to bring on our first wonderful guest today. One of the senior writers over at ESPN FC. It's Jeff Carlisle, and he joins us now on the shopfutsal.com call-in, or in this case, video line. Jeff, good morning to you, sir. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
Oop, Jeff isn't unmuted, I don't think. 1 second, Jeff. I think we'll get to you here in just a quick second.
This is officially our first video interview, isn't it?
It is officially, technically, yeah.
So thanks for waiting for us, Jeff, as we work out the kinks a little bit here.
We'll get Jeff unmuted here in just a quick second. But one of the things we're going to talk about, though, I think is going to be Axel Højbjerg and his injury, which I think is a big thing that people need to keep an eye on. But you've been very happy with what Axel Højbjerg has done so far, though, in his career, wouldn't you say? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, obviously played at Marquette University and did a wonderful job there. Playing now with the Colorado Rapids, as you mentioned, injured now, but last season, should have been selected to the All-Star team. That was a big snub, but I'm excited to see after he gets over this injury what he has to offer this season in Major League Soccer.
I agree. Okay, I think we've got Jeff now on the line with us. Jeff, are you there, sir?
I am. How are you guys?
Right,
there we go.
Apologies about that, Jeff. We're doing well. Excited to have you back on the program, and you're looking good, sir. You look like you're just kind of relaxing, just having. Does anybody work at ESPN, or do you guys just hang around all day? Like, how does this work?
Oh, we're working, believe me. But it's the kids have just left for school, so it's a little bit of peace has come to the Carlisle household. So.
There we go. I understand that. Well, Jeff, one of the first things we want to ask you about centers around a very young, budding center back here in Major League Soccer. Axel Højbjerg for the Colorado Rapids. Reports saying he's going to be out about 6 to 8 weeks. With the injury that he has sustained. Your thoughts about this injury and how it affects Colorado going forward for the first part of the season here?
Yeah, it's a big injury for Colorado. I mean, their foundation is defense, and he's been just a huge part of that solution, that style that Colorado plays. They do have Bobby Burling, and I know that last year Burling got quite a bit of time alongside Højbjerg. But and then Jared Watts kind of stepped in and was able to claim that starting spot. So I mean, Colorado does have a little bit of depth, but I mean, Højbjerg has really come on, by leaps and bounds, over the last year, and has really emerged as one of the top center backs in MLS. So I think anytime a team loses a player of that importance, it's going to be a little bit difficult to overcome, but. Colorado strikes me as a team that's very much, they have their own style. They have their own way of going about doing things.
Yes.
It's not always the easiest on the eyes, but they know what they're about. And I think that lends itself to surviving an injury like this a little bit better than, say, most teams. They're not going to change just because Axel Højbjerg isn't in the lineup. So, we'll have to take a wait-and-see approach to see how Colorado deals with it and how effective they're still able to be on the defensive end.
And, of course, it helps that they essentially have a bye week this week, right, playing against Minnesota United at home.
Well, Minnesota can threaten. I mean, they have been able to get some goals. So, it's on their defensive end that they've had some huge problems.
Absolutely.
And, I mean, it's been kind of shocking just, how disorganized how the team does not seem to be on the same page at all defensively, and even in midfield, where it looked like they had some players who, like Mohamed Saeed, and Colin Warner, who know what the league is about, who typically do fairly well in the defensive end. They really struggle to kind of apply pressure in midfield, and I think we saw last weekend with Atlanta that when you give a team like Atlanta time on the ball, they're gonna carve you up. So as much as there's been complaints about the back line, and there are a lot of legitimate ones, I think the whole team-wide approach to defending really needs a rethink, and we'll see what Adrian Heath is able to come up with this weekend.
Well, staying on Minnesota United, is it a little odd to you that they splashed all that cash on Kevin Molino and then didn't give him much of a surrounding cast at this point? I know they've talked about holding on to those DP slots and seeing perhaps how things go up until the summer and then using them. But I'm just curious about your thoughts on again, splashing that cash on Kevin Molino and then not really giving him much of a surrounding cast.
Well, they have Venegas, who they got from Montreal, who, there's a lot of people will recall, he gave the U.S. all kinds of fits in that Costa Rica World Cup qualifier. So I think he's a quality player. We'll see what Christian Ramirez is able to do, after he gets a few games under his belt. This is a big step up for a lot of these guys.
Right.
Miguel Ibarra, I don't think he's made it onto the field yet, if memory serves.
I think he played a little bit against Portland. If I remember right.
He might have got. You're right. He might have gotten on the field there at the end, but it's still. I think, he was a much ballyhooed acquisition, and for him to get so little playing time, I think is a little bit of a surprise, and it kind of makes you wonder, what his role is going to be going forward. So really, I'm not worried that much about the attack for Minnesota. They showed some decent flashes, even in really tough conditions last weekend.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. But it's really all about the defense, and especially in transition. It's just like once the ball turns over, it seems like Minnesota's completely at sea. So, that's something that they're going to have to sort out.
Yeah, you start off the season with a -9 goal difference. It certainly starts to raise some questions for you, honestly. And another team, too, that if I were to give you two teams before the season started, say, who do you think was going to have, 0 wins, the Galaxy or Minnesota United? You probably would have chosen Minnesota United, but obviously the Galaxy, they've yet to win a game this season as well. They're actually potentially looking towards the future, Jeff, is what it sounds like, at least come the summertime. There's been all these rumors linking them to wanting to make Zlatan Ibrahimovic the highest paid player in MLS history, blowing the whole David Beckham deal out of the water. Is there any actual weight to these rumors? And if it does happen, do you think it's a good move for MLS as well, too, and for the Galaxy specifically?
Well, I'll take the second question first. I think it would be a great move if Zlatan Ibrahimovic came to MLS. He would bring attention, and granted, MLS has been moving away from the older, star player who's at the end of their career, bringing that kind of player into MLS. But I think Ibrahimovic is the exception. I think he's a player who would put butts in the seats. He would get eyeballs on television, and I just think he'd be fantastic for the league. It would just ratchet up the level of attention that MLS would get. In terms of how much meat on the bone there is, I'm told that there's a long, long way to go. I made some calls around the league, and my question was, how far along is this? And the response was, well, it's a lot has to happen before you can even say it's far along. So it sounds like that the Galaxy have made an offer. It's basically the first step that you make. But obviously Ibrahimovic is having a fantastic season with Manchester United, and Jose Mourinho is a pretty persuasive guy, so I think he's gonna have some say as to what Ibrahimovic's future is. Now, Ibrahimovic, having said that, Ibrahimovic is his own guy. He's going to do what he wants, and you might feel that he's conquered England, and he can move on to other things. But I think that buzz of just kind of being in that European soccer fishbowl, if you will, I think that still has some pull. And granted, living in LA would be a huge adventure for him, but at the same time, we'll see if Manchester United makes the Champions League. We'll see if they slide into one of those spots. And that could have a big say in terms of whether Zlatan stays with Manchester United as well.
Sticking with MLS, Jeff, I do got a question for you on the flip side, on the positive side. Houston Dynamo, I had predicted that they'd actually make the playoffs because I like the moves that Wilmer Cabarra had made. But my goodness, Kyoto, Alice doing wonderful jobs there up top for Houston. Surprised at all by how well they're doing so quickly?
A little bit. Just you never know how these guys are going to settle in. There's always a big question mark. A player's ability to adapt to MLS, in terms of the physical style, in terms of the travel, in terms of the extreme weather conditions that you would even experience this time of year. Those are all questions, heading into it. Now, they have played 2 home games. So, let's see how these guys do on the road. Let's see what happens when they get an injury or two, or, some suspensions start to kick in and starts to test their depth. Don't forget last year, I think Orlando started 2-0-2 and then didn't make the playoffs. So, I think it's important not to get too carried away at this point, but certainly Houston looks much more dynamic. They look much more able to do some damage in the attacking third. It was a difficult situation last year, especially with Owen Coyle leaving and then Wade Barrett coming in. They were leaking so many goals that, that was the first thing that you had to try to fix if you're Wade Barrett. And, I think for the rest of the year, that team struggled to really find that balance between defense and attack. And now they seem to have found that balance. They seem to have some players who are just much more capable in the final third. So I think reasons to be optimistic if you're a Houston fan, but we still need a few more data points before we can really consider them a big-time contender in the West.
Sure, and a follow-up to that, Jeff, obviously the 2 players I named are Honduran. The U.S. will be seeing them soon. How much of an advantage is it for the U.S. to see these 2 guys playing in MLS right now?
Yeah, it gives them some additional information. I think the guys that you mentioned are so new. Although I think Albert Ellis, I think he gave the U23s all they could handle, if I'm not mistaken, that Olympic qualifier.
Yes, sir.
So it's I think there's some guys who are on that team who have some tough memories, of Ellis. But the more information, the better. But we'll see how whether those guys get on the field. We'll see. How many of those MLS guys are going to play a big role? I know Roger Espinosa is getting called in,
sure.
So he's another MLS guy. He's a guy that I expect to play a little bit bigger role, just given his experience in World Cup qualifying as well. So, but that's going to be a really tense, just white knuckle type of qualifier. That granted, those adjectives tend to describe most qualifiers, but just given where the U.S. stands, it's going to be. It's going to be a really tense affair, I think.
Awesome. One last question for you, Jeff. Just wondering if you've heard any rumors at all on the MLS expansion race, if you could fill us in on that at all.
Well, it's still early days. I hear that basically MLS at this stage is really kind of internally focused, I think is the best way you could put it. They've got 12 bids that they have to try to sort through. And on
top of that,
2 of them, initially, and then they say, well, we're going to pick 2 more at a later date. So that's really open ended. I've got to believe that Sacramento is sitting in a really good spot. Don Garber seems to love San Diego. There were a lot of talks even before the Super Draft about how he was talking to leaders there, kind of on the down low. The question then becomes, do you put 2 teams in California? Obviously the whole point of this expansion thing is to expand the national footprint,
right?
Give more value to future television deals. So, I think it seems tough for me to think that both Sacramento and San Diego are going to come in as a pair. MLS keeps talking about, they want to have more of a presence in the South, but it seems like at least some of the bids, in that area of the country are a little problematic. So, and then St. Louis has got a pretty big vote that they've got to try to overcome. So I think Sacramento's ticked all the boxes. We'll see if they want to put another team in California, and then also one that's kind of close to San Jose. It's a couple hour drive away. So every bid I think is got, its issues. It's got some things that kind of make you cock your head to the side and think, hey, is this really the right place to be? So it's, again, I think MLS is just trying to absorb all this information that they've gotten from the bids, and then they'll try to move on from there.
Well, good stuff, Jeff. We appreciate you joining us on Two Up Front today. Where can people continue to find your wonderful writing and also follow you on social media for the latest news about the soccer world?
Well, they can follow me on Twitter at Jeffrey Carlisle, and then if they just go to ESPNFC.com, put my name in the search bar, they'll find my stuff that way as well.
Awesome, Jeff. We appreciate you taking the time today, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
Anytime, guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
No problem. There goes Jeff Carlisle on the shopfutsal.com call, video / multimedia line, keeping us in the know with everything taking place in the soccer world. Some great stuff from Jeff as well, too. I was hoping he was going to give us a little bit like, yes, guys, San Diego's the next place. Or, yes, guys, like maybe David Beckham finally has woken up from the rock that he's been hiding under.
Well, I'll tell you what. Speaking of David Beckham, Baxter, that was one of the things I was going to offer up to Jeff as well. Is he's talking about how MLS is looking at themselves right now.
Yes.
Well, it comes out yesterday in Miami. That's another thing MLS is trying to sort out. Comes out in Miami yesterday that either an alderman or perhaps the mayor or one of the congressmen, whoever it was basically saying, I don't want this to be the site that apparently Beckham's group has spent $19 million on. This guy now has come out and said, I don't want to...
You've already spent that much money.
Right. Well, this man has come out and said, I don't want this land to be for a stadium anymore. I want it to be for low-income housing.
Huh. Low-income housing.
So,
okay.
So the saga continues. MLS has come out and said that Miami will not be ready for 2018. So there will be an odd number of teams in the league, starting in 2018. When it comes to 2019, Miami's hoping to have a team, but there's got to be a point at which the league says either to the city of Miami, give us this land. And then look, I realize it's not as simple as that, but there's got to be a point where, again, we're on year number 3 now of waiting for this franchise to happen.
It'd be great, but when's it going to actually happen?
Well, so the MLS at some point has to either tell Beckham, this is find a new city or be done with it.
Right.
I know MLS is really pushing for Miami. I still am not sold on the idea of Miami. If you're already getting this much pushback, and you don't see a lot of soccer supporters coming out and saying, no, we need this.
That's the thing, too. I mean, there's not an outcry.
Well, and the league has already failed in Miami once before. I realize it's different times, but I understand there's a big Cuban contingent down there, but for everything that I read about is there's more baseball fans, and there's not even a lot of those people in Miami. So if you can't get the baseball fans out to Marlins Stadium, you're not hearing much from soccer supporters in Miami.
No.
Why continue to push the issue?
And I would agree with you on that one as well, too. And I think that's really what it really boils down to is that where is the want for it? This would make so much more sense if you had Sacramento-type fans in Miami like marching in the streets, making supporters groups saying, David Beckham or MLS, give us our team. Tampa Bay is just up the road, and they're doing even way more than what Miami is doing. Like, Tampa has at least put together a plan and at least gotten approval, where Miami is just floating out in the sea, not caring.
They're just missing a fourth of a stadium in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, exactly. That's all they could afford, I guess. See, if Beckham went to Tampa, maybe then they could help work with each other out as well, too. And that's what I almost wonder, too. And we've talked about this. What if Beckham just picks up shop and says, all right, San Diego, all right, Sacramento, all right, whoever, I'll just come give you some of my money since I already know California or wherever, and I can actually get a bid to actually go through.
Yeah, I do wonder if there's more behind the scenes, more in that contract that we don't know about. What I mean by that is we know David Beckham gets a discount on a franchise. I think he only has to pay $20 million to get a franchise.
I love that. That's the going rate for an MLS franchise. Only $20 million.
10% of what teams are paying now.
Right.
But you wonder if Miami was part of that equation, if he got to pick one city and that was it. Is that why we haven't seen David Beckham pack up and go elsewhere yet?
That's a good question. I would like to hopefully get answers about that. Maybe we'll try to get a hold of David Beckham's PR people. Be like, do you mind? Like, can we just chat with him real fast? And I don't know how much of it's even really his fault though. At the same time, I mean, like we've talked. I mean, he keeps getting shut down at almost every different door that potentially is even a sliver open. He's like, guys, can I? Like, nope. Like, can't. So.
Well, it's funny because they had announced, too, on March 6th that they were going to do a big announcement and then scrap that.
Here it is, March 15th, and
yes.
Nothing. Appreciate that, Miami. You guys are the best. We love you. All right, let's chat about the NWSL really quick before we get to Marcelo Taborga. The preseason rosters officially coming out for all of the NWSL clubs. It's good to see the Boston Breakers, of course, adding all the players that they have. I really want to see what Rose Lavelle does, because the bits that I saw with her at the national team level, you have to feel optimistic if you're a Breakers fan.
Look, she was one of the few bright spots in the She Believes Cup.
Yes. I didn't realize how fast Rose Lavelle was.
I agree with you, Baxter.
Oh, my goodness. When I was watching the games and the highlights, and I was like, wait, that's Rose Lavelle? I thought it was somebody else. I was like, is Usain Bolt, put a wig on and just running out there? She was insanely fast. And it wasn't just a fast to be fast. She had ball control the entire time, which is very hard to do.
Absolutely. And just looking at the league overall, Baxter, listen, I know obviously Alex Morgan is playing for Lyon. She'll be back at some point.
Right.
Crystal Dunn is gone.
Yes.
She's playing for Chelsea's women. But however, you look at the rosters in this league, North Carolina, Chicago Red Stars, who I think have to be one of the favorites.
Yeah.
The Thorns, FC Kansas City getting a bunch of their
Sydney
stars
LaRue
back.
and
Boston Breakers being loaded at this point, really. The Dash, a little bit of improvement there, we shall see. Orlando Pride, obviously, looking better. This obviously adding up to be the most competitive year in the NWSL.
And I think that's what the league needs. You need a highly competitive league to continue to push forward. And I get it. Somebody always has to be the bad team. That's just how sports works. Somebody, you can't win every game. I get that. But I feel like if you've got all 10 teams competing at a high level, no matter what, no matter who first through 10 is, I think it just makes the league better. Even if Boston ends up in last place, but they still win 10 games or whatever, they're still going to be pushing people all season long.
Absolutely, and
I think
that's exactly what you want.
They've got the personnel to do that. I think the team that you and I are probably going to be watching the most this year is Seattle, though, because they've made all these transitions during the offseason to get in Christine Nairn, Megan Rapinoe starting to come back as well, too. They've just been continuously adding and signing players, and Jess Fishlock had a great success while she was down at the W League as well, too. This is a team that's going to walk in day one and expect to be a top 3 team, probably.
Yeah, I agree with you, Baxter, and that's exactly what I'm pointing to. With only 4 teams making the playoffs, that's what I mean by being the most competitive year, because there are no clear-cut 1, 2, 3, 4 this year.
No, I don't think so. I will say this, and it pains me to say this because we love Christy Holly. I really do. I love Christy Holly. I don't think Sky Blue is going to be good this year. I really don't. Just based off of the offseason transfers that they've made, the roster really doesn't have a lot of dynamic, kicky in the face kind of players.
Yeah, the only thing I will say is we were saying the same thing about Western New York Flash last year.
True.
And then all of a sudden, through the season, we get budding stars that we didn't realize were stars.
That's true.
So you never know.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, Christy is an exceptional coach, too. Like I said, we've had him on the program before, and we know that he is very capable of motivating his players to do virtually anything. And Raquel Rodriguez last season, I believe, was the Rookie of the Year. Just a dynamic player that could be, as you mentioned, that player that shoots up out of nowhere, be like, hey, guys, I'm really, really good. I'm going to continue to do really well going forward. And you're going to get Kelly O'Hara back later on in the season when she's done with Arsenal women. You still have Christina Rampone hanging around right now, but yeah, I don't know. I'm still a little hesitant to think if I had to pick a worse team to start. I feel like it would either be Sky Blue or it might be Washington. Honestly, kind of moving forward. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on both of those teams, honestly, and kind of hope for the best out of that. Washington, especially, I feel like is really going to be that team where you and I really just are like, I have no idea what you're going to do, Washington.
Right,
they literally traded away their entire team, basically.
So would it be fair to say that you're looking at Houston, Sky Blue FC, and Washington to be somewhere in the bottom 3 this year?
Yes, I would agree with you on that, in all honesty. And that's nothing against Houston, but as you mentioned, though, Houston hasn't done a lot this offseason. They made a couple of things. That's great. Houston has very much like the Revolution, where they have the offensive power to fight you. You've got Rachel Daly. You've got Morgan Bryant. When Carly Lloyd comes back, you've got the players, Kelia Ohai, of course.
Exactly.
You can't look past having some of the arguably the best young midfielders and forwards in the game. But defensively, that's where I have a big problem with it. Goalkeeper, they're fine. Lydia Williams, Jane Campbell, whoever it is, they're going to be fine in the net. Defensively, I'm terrified because I have no idea what the Dash are going to do, honestly. So that's going to be a big problem moving forward, in my opinion, if you're the Dash.
Yeah, and I would say the biggest thing with the Washington Spirit is kind of like Sky Blue FC. Well, not kind of like Sky Blue FC. It's the biggest thing is just the mystery of what they're going to look like.
Right.
So they got rid of so many players, brought in so many new players.
Yes.
My feeling is preseason is all about finding the identity of the team.
Exactly. And that's even the thing, too. Just because FC Casey's getting LaRue and Rodriguez back doesn't mean they're going to be good. These ladies haven't played soccer at a high level for a little over a year.
That's right.
So
That's right.
Who knows? It's not necessarily going to be the same Rodriguez and the same Sydney LaRue that were tearing up the NWSL and the national teams as well, too. I don't necessarily know what you're going to get. So that I'm going to definitely be keeping an eye on those two players very much as the preseason and regular season begins here in just the next couple of weeks. So kind of exciting, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of excitement, Baxter, the NWSL, the NC Courage, North Carolina Football Club, big announcement. They're actually teaming up with, obviously, the men's side of the club, North Carolina FC, but also with Capital Area Soccer League and Triangle Football Club. They're all merging together, basically, is the easiest way to explain it, at the youth levels to form the largest youth soccer club in North Carolina. But what's great is now you know that you've got professional teams, both men's and women's, not only helping with the development of these younger players, but also got eyes on these younger players.
And that's the big thing. I mean, North Carolina is a huge hub for the soccer world for those that don't follow soccer as closely as maybe Simon and I do. But if you can get the largest state to an extent that produces high-quality soccer talent, all working together, all levels all working together.
And that's it. It's exactly it is. They are all working together.
Yes.
Baxter, this means that in this one club alone, there's going to be 13,500 youth players. Now, what you hope is that this does lead to being able to get away from a pay-to-play model.
Yeah.
I think eventually that's how you solve the problem. That's a whole nother show we could talk about with the pay-to-play model.
Yes.
But when you get professional teams involved where they're not dependent on parents having to put money forward so their kids can train with a club, but instead money coming from the top down, it'd be great to see that a lot of the youth then be served in this way, where it's not about the only kids who can play are the ones who parents are wealthy or who qualify for some type of scholarship, but they get to play because they want to play. That's
exactly. And that's the beauty of the game of soccer as a whole, is playing the game because you love it, not because you have to pay thousands of dollars just to step on a field with some of the best players in your area.
My wallet knows that scenario well.
It's the problem when your daughter's so good at soccer. I get it, you know. All right, let's move into the European side of the game here as one of our correspondents, Marcelo Taborga, is going to be joining us on the line here in just a quick moment. The Premier League continuing to change, continuing to make so many different people excited about the craziness that is taking place. And Marcelo is one of our European soccer correspondents. And he's going to be joining us on the show here in just a brief moment. I'm excited to talk to him about everything taking place in Everton. So let's get to Marcelo right now as he is joining us here on the shopfutsal.com call-in line. Marcelo, sir, how are we doing today?
Hey, guys. Hello from Florida.
Yeah, rub it in right off the bat. Appreciate it, Marcelo. Right off the bat. So I don't even want to ask you how warm it is down there, but I'm going to.
It actually got pretty chilly today. I think it was 60 this morning when I went to the gym.
60, Simon.
Man, that's got to be cold in Florida.
I can't even imagine.
Degrees.
I feel like you guys are probably scraping ice off your cars like, this is 60 degrees. Help us.
Yeah, it was freezing. I put on a jacket this morning.
Yeah, it's like 20 below. No, it's like 20 degrees here, basically.
Put on the snow boots to walk my daughters out to the bus this morning.
You gotta do that. Well, Marcelo, the Premier League is coming towards the tail end of the season. Chelsea right now high atop the table. What do you make of this potential 2 or 3 team race for the final spot, that first place spot here in the English Premier League at the end of the season?
Well, unless there's like a serious injury to either Conte or Hazard, I really don't see anybody beating Chelsea for, the championship right now.
And you look at it, I mean, they're 10 points clear of Tottenham, also 10 points clear of City as well. Tottenham, I think you should be happy about if you're a Tottenham Spurs fan, because they've been able to be consistent, which I think folks were kind of worried about after them doing fairly well last year, but even being in second place, I feel like in the Premier League, has to speak to the team as a whole, especially with Harry Kane starting so poorly as well.
Yeah, and I think he got injured recently.
Not sure. Yes, he did. He did. So that's another scare for Tottenham.
That's a big scare, yeah.
I mean, they're still as much as Chelsea is up by 10 points and Tottenham's sitting there in second. You lose Harry Kane to a serious injury. There's still 11 games to be played, which is a significant amount of games to be played.
Talk to me about Manchester United here, because they are trying to fight for a Champions League spot right now. They're trying to stay relevant. They're doing well. It's not like they're not having a good season, but your thoughts about the sixth place Reds trying to take over the world right now of the Premier League and just European football?
Well, as you know, I love Man U, but I'm still just, I can't believe we still have Fellaini. I mean, you know, it's kind of like Mourinho gets so tempted to play him. And then when he's on the field, you have to take long balls, you have to shoot it, you have to use his headers. But, you know, I don't think that's the Manchester United style. So when he's there, it's like you're tempted to play him. You know, he's good in the air. But in the position he plays him, it's like, okay, you're putting Paul Pogba next to Mariano Fellaini. Paul Pogba used to play next to Marquisio and Pirlo, and he dominated. Now he's playing next to Fellaini, which still to me is a 4-star, 3-star team, player. He's not your 5-star team player. So I think that's the reason why we're still sixth place, to be honest with you. But I do see that we're playing very well. We had a great match against Chelsea. We ended up losing, unfortunately, but it was very exciting to see how the team played so well defensively. Rashford just had pretty much one of the games of his life all by himself up front. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'm still excited whether or not we reach Champions League. I hope we do, because that really is going to attract a lot more quality players if we do reach the Champions League. But there's always hope. You never know, somebody's going to slip. The Gerrard slip. Somebody's going to slip. Hopefully. Somebody's going to slip, hopefully, and I don't think United is going to slip at all for the rest of the season. So
no, I mean they're playing well. I mean they haven't lost in a while. You look at a club like Liverpool, who they're at 55 points. Man U's at 49, and Man U does have 2 games in hand, so they could be tied in points. Then you're looking at goal differential, which does favor Liverpool. Now Liverpool had that gritty win against Burnley, but the way they've been playing against the lesser clubs of the league has been surprising. So I actually think Manchester United has a great opportunity to get in Champions League. If not through the league, through the Premier League, they're looking really good in Europa League.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and I think we've been playing very well in Europa League as well. I think definitely not the highest rated players like Ander Herrera, Marcos Rojo. They're really stepping up their game when it comes to these really important matches. You got the likes of even David De Gea coming in huge all the time for us. But it's always just, if these Pogba isn't playing well, you can always count on Ander Herrera to, just run his guts out all the way in the field. So I'm really excited for how the team is developing for sure. And I really do believe we can win the Europa League as well.
Talking with Marcelo Taborga here on To Up Front on the ShopFutsal.com call-in line. Marcelo, changing gears here for the last little part of our chat with you. The Champions League, walk me through the chaos that's been taking place here, because you see games like Barcelona and PSG, which I still haven't fully accepted happen, because I'm pretty sure there was some weird like FIFA cheat codes or something that were applied to the game. But what have you made of these second legs as you see, Bayern, Real Madrid, Dortmund, Barcelona, Juventus, Leicester all come away with victories and then ultimately end up moving through to the next round?
Well, I don't know, but I don't know if you've heard, there's a petition going around to replay the Barca PSG game. And I did sign it just to see, if Barcelona can do it. Barcelona can do it again. But I mean, so far, the Champions League has just been, so entertaining, because, even in the Real Madrid-Napoli game, Napoli's, and everybody's like, oh man, Napoli's going to come out with the win. And then, of course, Real Madrid just ends up securing it. But very impressed by Leicester City, very impressed. At home and give the fans something to cheer on, against Sevilla, such a great squad. But, I mean, the Champions League, honestly, I don't think anybody can stop Bayern right now.
Well, that's actually what I was going to bring up. As impressive as Leicester has been, at least yesterday, completely unimpressive is Arsenal. I mean, just getting destroyed in both games by Bayern, but then also being just horrible in the Premier League. What is going on with the Gunners?
Well, it's good news for me because hopefully, man, you can top them in the table. But there's been some very interesting things. I think Sanchez is obviously the center of attention. And they're really not. I feel like they're not doing a very good job securing his position in the team. He's almost the face of Arsenal right now. So to kind of treat him in the way he's been treated, not ideal. If I were to be an Arsenal fan, to the very least, because Arsenal obviously they're always been such a consistent squad coming in fourth pretty much every year, but I feel like they're going to have a hard time keeping their players. I know Bellerin's been linked to Barcelona. They're really going to have a hard time keeping a few of their players, at least, over the summer.
All right. Well, oops, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll tell you what my hopes are. I'm an Everton guy, Marcelo. So I'm hoping that Manchester United ends up in 5th place. Everton ends up in 6th. Manchester United wins Europa League, goes to the Champions League, and that means Everton at least gets to go to Europa League. I believe that's how it works anyways.
I think so.
That would be great because you guys will get to keep Lukaku as well.
Oh, yes. Yes, we need to keep him. One of the leading scorers in the Premier League. He's so fun to watch.
No kidding. Well, Marcelo, we appreciate you taking the time to join us on Two Up Front today, sir. We'll be talking to you again soon, all right? We appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
All right, there goes Marcelo Taborga on the shopfutsal.com call-in line. Great interviews today so far, Simon. Jeff Carlisle of ESPN FC. Great to hear from Marcelo as well about the Premier League. And I try to understand the Champions League, but there is just so much weirdness that takes place that I'm just like, I don't know. I love the drama.
Sure,
I really
sure.
do.
I think the biggest thing that adds to the weirdness factor that you're pointing to is the shuffling that these European teams do have to do with the amount of games that they have. So you never quite know who exactly is going to be suiting up for these teams, especially when you're talking group stage. But but even here, it's if team like Arsenal, if they're going to put everybody in that game against Bayern and try to get over the big hump that they have, which of course got even bigger, they're not going to be playing as many players in the Premier League. But that for me has been the oddest thing is the lack of shuffling, successful shuffling that Arsenal's been able to do. Years past, they usually get this far and then tank out anyways. But at least in the league, at this point, they were still looking like they were going to be in the top 4. And right now, I don't see it happening. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what the heck Arsenal does. We've heard chants of Arsene Wenger, should get fired as well. I mean, at this point, maybe what could it hurt, honestly, if you fire Arsene Wenger? As an Arsenal supporter, I feel like maybe that is the route that needs to happen, so that way you can finally move forward as a club and stop settling for 4th place. If they do, though, Baxter, I certainly hope it would be, why don't we announce that you're retiring? Because he's been with the club for 20 years. Yeah, you can't just outright fire him. He's been very successful in the respect of making it to Champions League every year. Granted, I know people say, well, that's not success in and of itself, and I agree with that. However, he also was the coach responsible for them winning with Thierry Henry. We're not losing 38 games. They went undefeated. The undefeated season. Right. Yeah. So he's done wonderful things with that club. So you would hope that he doesn't just end up getting dismissed. I think you do see him out through the end of the season and then maybe have a backdoor agreement with him. Be like, listen, why don't you announce, you're going to retire, and we can kind of just move on from there, basically. All right, a couple of quick comments here on Facebook. James on Facebook says, we should put a team in Milwaukee. Well, we do technically have a team here in Milwaukee, depending on your taste, whether it's the indoor side of it for the Milwaukee Wave, who are doing exceptionally well in the MASL playoffs right now. Holy cow. Yeah, well, they start, I believe it's on Sunday is the game. I'll pull it up here, Baxter. But what a finish. Finals. Yeah, what a finish they had to the season. It looked like that the Milwaukee Wave was not going to make the playoffs earlier in their year when we talked to Giuliano Oliveira, who was going to be on today's show, but they got this thing called training going on. Practice. So we'll get him on here at some point. But yeah, very exciting times for the Milwaukee Wave. Yes, I'm excited to have Coach on hopefully here in the coming weeks. Maybe he'll bring the trophy when they end up winning it and just be like, here you go, guys. We've been busy. Sorry. That's right. Here we go. And then Tony also says, excellent and insightful interview with Jeff Carlisle. We appreciate that, thanks, Tony. We love having Jeff on the show. Last thing we got to get to here on the end of the show here on Two Up Front is our MLS predictions for the upcoming weekend. I'm going to gloat for it as long as I can. I'm currently leading. I've got a 10-11 record. You've got a 7-14 record. Yes, I do. Yes. I changed that Minnesota pick after we got off the air. I don't know if you had marked that down.
Yes,
as a
that
loss.
you would pick with the Loons, right?
Yes,
yep.
I thought with the conditions, with the snow and all the South Americans.
Mentally, I was like, I think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and then they lose 6-1. By the way, we didn't say this with Jeff on the phone or on the on the computer,
on the video, on the stream.
I'm an old man. I don't know how to phrase
Somewhere.
that.
On the interwebs, I don't know.
But what we didn't talk about is this is officially the worst start goal-wise for an expansion team to only score 2 goals and give up 11.
Well, and it's also, I mean, that game against Atlanta was the record coldest ever in Major League Soccer.
Yes.
The absolute coldest. Like, it was, I couldn't believe it. I was trying to keep an eye on what they were doing, and I'm like, how are they playing a game right now? I was like, this is unbelievable. But Atlanta
and yet they
emerges victorious.
They postponed the New England game.
I'm like, guys, like, it was a flurry.
But listen,
like, what the heck?
Listen, give credit, though, to those Minnesota United fans. They understand it's an expansion season. 35,000 still show up at TCF Bank Stadium, which is where the Minnesota Gophers football team plays. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere there every time, Baxter.
I agree. All right, getting to the predictions now for us. NYC FC playing host to the Montreal Impact. What say you, Simon Provan?
New York City, I can't deny that they're looking much better. I was surprised at how well they played at home, Baxter, in their opening home game, because last year it was almost hurting them to play at home on that very small pitch at Yankee Stadium, but they seem to have adjusted well to it, and I think they're going to be a scary team this year.
That 4-0 victory against DC United last week certainly sent a clear message, especially when you and I have been so happy or praiseworthy of DC United as well, too. So something to keep an eye on. A game that I think a lot of folks are excited for, Atlanta and Chicago. Chicago got a big shutout victory against RSL last week at home. Atlanta, of course, coming off of another goal-happy game for them. Atlanta's home. What do you make of this game?
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're a Chicago fan, take a snapshot of the standings because you're sitting in second place.
Yes.
4 points out of the first 2 games.
Day.
That's good. But I think, man, with the way Atlanta looks right now, they are on fire. They did well in their home opener. They ended up losing, but they were looking pretty darn well for about the first 60 minutes. I think they put it all together, Baxter, and Atlanta wins this one.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that one as well, too.
Who'd you have for the last game, by the way?
I had NYC FC as well. Yep, sorry. Vancouver playing host to TFC. Look, Toronto has got this Giovinco injury that continues to loom, and Vancouver is scoring goals. That's the thing. They just lost to San Jose 3-2. I get that. That, tough, hard-fought battle, but Vancouver seems to be putting things together, and I feel like I said this all last year when they were doing fairly well to start the season as well, but darn it, I'm going to keep pushing Vancouver. I have them beating a wounded TFC at home.
Well, I'll tell you what, Usted looked fantastic last night. He's the only reason that game ended up 2-0, not 6-0. I think they're going to have a lot of tired legs, so I'm actually going to go with Toronto on this one.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that one. DC United playing host to Columbus. DC coming off of that massive shutout loss. Columbus still trying to find their feet a little bit here with this new shifty team that they've got involved. I've got Columbus winning on the road just because I don't think DC United has a clear picture yet of what they're trying to do this season.
I agree with you that DC's looking for something, but I'm going to go with they put some of that together this weekend, and I'm actually going to go DC United for the win.
Fair enough. Orlando back at home again against the Philadelphia Union. Your thoughts?
Philly's looking okay this season. Orlando, obviously, without a Kaká midfield. This is a tough one, Baxter. I'm going to have to go with the draw.
That's exactly what I took as well, too. I was thinking about it. I'm like, I'm really not blown away by either of these teams, honestly. So hoping we'll see what a draw ends up coming from this. FC Dallas playing host to the New England Revolution. FC Dallas, they have a Champions League game tonight. The Revolution got an extra week of rest because they didn't have to play against Orlando. I think the Revs, even though it's on the road, playing in a warm climate, I think they're going to take advantage of a tired FC Dallas.
That all makes perfect sense to me, Baxter, but I'm totally sold on FC Dallas. I don't care what happens tonight. FC Dallas wins this game against New England.
Fair enough. Sporting Kansas City and San Jose.
I'm going to go with San Jose.
That's exactly who I have as well, too.
See, you're just picking all my teams so you stay ahead of me in the standings for the rest of the season.
Always make the same picks. I've got a 3-game lead. I'm going to just pick every single thing you do now the rest of the way. You found me out. Colorado playing host to Minnesota United. The Loons are just in a tailspin, unfortunately. It's almost like a game of duck hunter. There's a whack.
If Minnesota, that was harsh, Baxter.
Sorry.
A little too soon.
A little too soon.
If Minnesota can't score against the likes of Minnesota United, who I do have to say, or
Colorado
Atlanta
can't score against.
No, I was going to say if Minnesota
Minnesota
can't score against Atlanta United, who his defense is doing much better than I thought. Jeff Lorenowitz, Greg Garza gelling a lot quicker than I expected. But I don't see Minnesota able to get past this Colorado back line. I'm taking Colorado in a 2-0 win.
I agree with you. RSL and the Galaxy. I've got Real Salt Lake winning this game. I feel like even though the beginning of the season has been a little bit of a roller coaster for them, that LA still is trying to figure out what do we do with our hands. We don't now have the same team that we had last year, so how do we put this all together? And Rio Tinto, traditionally very hard to win at. Nick Romando still playing very good soccer to start the season as well in between the pipes.
Yeah, RSL only a point on the season, but the Nick Romando point is exactly what I was going to say. Is he's stellar. He's still playing like he's 25, and I think we see RSL win this one.
Portland and Houston, arguably the game of the week.
It is.
I think there's almost too much firepower in this game. I think they're going to end up in a draw.
Ooh, that's a good point. I got to take the Timbers. They're at home.
Understandable.
I am still worried about that defense. We saw LA get behind it a few times.
Yeah.
Fernando Adi perhaps being too selfish when he should have passed that ball off to Diego Valeri.
Come on, Fernando. You're better than that.
I'm hoping they get a few of those kinks worked out.
Agreed.
I think Portland wins this game.
Pirano. Who is that? Seattle and the Red Bulls playing each other. Seattle hosting. Red Bulls are a little better. Maybe. I don't know. The Red Bulls are my pick in this one. It's hard because both of these teams are very well matched, but I think the Red Bulls ultimately are the better of the two teams.
Yeah, I mean, the Red Bulls, Portland, and Houston, the only teams with 2 wins on the season.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the Red Bulls as well.
Okie doke. Well, we'd love to hear your guys' your predictions. You can comment here below in the video, or you can get us, of course, at 2UpFront Soccer on the Twitterverse. That's the word that I was looking for.
By the way, Chris Blakely gave me a hard time for cheering on Portland with their win over Minnesota United. Chris, you give me a little credit now that Portland has beaten LA. And listen, I know there's controversial cards in that game. I get all of that. But by the way, if you're on a yellow card already, you don't go diving in at a player and make the ref have to decide on whether he's going to give you a second yellow or not. I don't know if it was a deserved red, but it was a stupid play by Van Damme to go in there the way he did.
I agree. All right, well, we're going to have to wrap things up for this week. A special thanks to Jeff Carlisle of ESPN FC for joining us, and Marcelo Taborga, one of our European soccer correspondents, for joining us as well. All guests appearing on the shopfutsal.com call-in line. And remember, if you missed today's show, you can find it here on the Brew Sports page. We've also shared it as well on our Facebook page as well, 2UpFront, so go check it out there as well.
Yeah, Baxter, real quick.
Yes, go right ahead.
Are we going to do our I Believes this week?
Sure, we can I Believe really fast. Yeah.
That means you don't have one prepared.
I don't. I believe that Zlatan will go to the Galaxy.
Okay, good.
There
I like
you go.
it. I like it. I actually didn't have one set. I just wanted to make sure.
Oh, there you go. You're keeping me honest.
I'm keeping you honest, yes. So I believe, boy, what should I do for my I Believe? I believe that the She Believes Cup.
Oh boy,
see what I did there?
I believe She Believes
was more about development than anything else, and I think people freaking out will soon see that the U.S. is not as bad as the tournament made him look to be.
I can get behind that. I like that idea.
I wasn't here last week to talk about it, so I'd throw
and that's
something
the thing.
in there.
I did want to. Yeah, that was definitely the thing. So, all right. Well, Simon Provan, I appreciate your insight as always, sir. And we look
it's good to be back.
Looking forward to having you back again next week.
Yeah, likewise. Brian Dunseth next week is the
plan.
rumor.
That's the rumor. You heard it here first. Big Dunny D there joining us, hopefully from SiriusXM FC, RSL commentator as well too. So love having Brian Dunseth on the program, and hopefully some more exciting interviews as well for you. As a reminder, you can get our show on demand on iTunes, iHeartRadio, and our website, 2UpFrontSoccer.com as well.
And find us on Facebook. Type in 2UpFront in that search bar. Find us on Twitter as well, at 2UpFrontSoccer. He's at Baxter Colburn. I'm at Simon Provan.
All right, for Simon Provan, I am Baxter Colburn. With our manager being the one above, we are 2UpFront.